Hello, everybody. I see we are over 60 people now for this webinar. My name is Jean-Claude. I am the Vice President of the European Choral Association, Europa Cantat. And so I have volunteered to be the Monsieur Loyal of this first webinar on repertoire. And during 1 hour, maybe a little bit more, we are four to be with you, four of us, and ladies first. From Netherlands, we have Merel Martens. From Switzerland, we have Patrick Secchiari. Sonja Greiner, our Secretary General, is in Bonn in the office, as far as I see the poster behind her. And so we are going to start as soon as possible. Some recommendation for this webinar. The first thing I have to inform you that we are recording this webinar. Why do we do that? In order to put it on YouTube and on our website, so people who cannot attend live can see the webinar some time later. So I hope you don't mind that we record this, and if not, I'm so sorry, but then this will be your responsibility to leave the webinar. The second thing, I don't know if you are familiar with this tool, but at the bottom of your screen, you have a chat button. And I see that already 7 people have tried to say hello to everybody. Fantastic. So this chat, you can choose to chat with everybody or to chat with some of the participants, I guess. And this is something we won't too much look at because you have another button that we will use later. It's a Q&R or question and answer, Q&A. I don't know what you have in, I have a French version on my screen. And this is a tool where you can ask questions to the panel. So in order not to disturb in the middle of presentation, but you can write your question and I will be happy. We are 2 of us reading that and trying to mix up the good questions and to summarize this for the panel. So you will get a straight answer or sometime an answer by writing, or we will dismiss your question because we have already heard it. So don't mix too much the chat button where you do whatever you want and the question and answer. This is specially to ask question to the panel, not in between yourself, to the panel. Okay? That's, I think, all what I had to tell you before we start. We have a wonderful PowerPoint presentation that I see just not, I try to read this, but I have too many things open on my screen. Yeah, so you will have different things happening during this, this webinar. You will have 1 or 2 polls because we want to know who you are. Are you conductor? Are you singer? Are you composer? So we have short polls with short questions in order to make a little bit of statistics or to get your opinion. Sonja will take care of this. And then you will hear some clips and some demo on your screen. And well, that's about all. You have some recommendation on your screen for technical. Close out the program. Take out your microphone, but in a webinar we don't hear you anyway. I think that's all. Sonja, did I forget anything?
No, I think it's fine, and we can maybe proceed to the first poll.
Yes, but maybe before that, I just let you know what it is about. I mean, this webinar is about choral repertoire. So we will have several topics coming on, how to build a repertoire for a concert, how to find repertoire in different kind of music, being academic or being modern music or rhythm music. And Patrick and Merel will share this with you. Then we will have a presentation, I don't know which order it is, but a presentation of one fantastic resource software, which is Musica, how to get to find a repertoire there. And at the end, I will take care to remind you a little bit with the law concerning author right and copyright, and what can we do, what cannot we do, including in this period where everything is upside down. So let's go, Sonja.
Okay, let's start with the little poll. We would like to know who you are. So I will launch a polling and I will ask you to answer. Let's wait a little bit because it takes a little bit of time until everybody has voted. I can maybe say that we have over 90 participants at this point, which is great. So welcome again for all those who were maybe not there from the first minute. And we look forward to what we will hear and see in the coming hour. And you are fantastic voters because we are already at 80 people who have voted. So you are a very active audience, which is fantastic.
I see that many people that we know are online with this. Hello to everybody, to the friends, and Kom is there. Hello,
yes. Hello.
So the poll should be almost answered.
Yes, I think I will end it now. We have 85 out of 94, 87, 88. We're almost there. So good. Let's say now, let's have a look at your answers. And I share the result so you can see, which is not surprising. This workshop was meant for conductors, so it's not surprising that conductors and vocal leaders are the majority. But it's nice to see that we also have composers and students and managers attending. And we can see a little bit where people come from. So this is nice to know. And we can now continue. And I will pass the word to Patrick Secchiari from Switzerland, who will start with the first presentation and who will share his own screen.
Yes, hello to everybody in this webinar. I just have to share my screen with you and then I'll be ready to start. So I am choir conductor and I live in Bern in Switzerland, and I'm very honored to share with you my ideas and my thoughts about how to create a choir program. So you always have a starting point, and the starting point can be very different. So I have here 6 possibilities. Of course, we have many more. But I would say the most important thing is the first and the second line. Always when you start a new program, you really have to have this special need and this desire to do this music, this favorite piece, or to go to this special concert location. Just be sure that never do a program that everybody else is doing or just make a copy-paste. I think it's very important to think about a common thread. So of course you can do a concert program with all of your favorite pieces, but it's more interesting for you and your choir if you have a common thread in your program, and of course it's more interesting for the audience. So here you have some possibilities. Of course you will find many more. What needs do I have to consider? Of course, the conductor's needs is at the beginning, and then the choir needs. Of course, you should think about the audience, what they are expecting, and maybe you want to surprise the audience and get out of your comfort zone. And never forget the board, because sometimes conductors have really wonderful ideas that they want to realize, but people from the board will say to you that this is too expensive, that this will not fit to the budget. And sometimes if you are doing cooperations or if you have foundations that support your choir or sponsors, you have to be sure that they are happy with the program that you are doing, that they will give you the money. Think about extras. Of course, you still can do a very classical and traditional setting, and you can sing in front of the audience and hold your music and be in a very classical concert dress. But I think today we really can reach the public and the audience with much more, and with a special light design, with movement in the concert, and maybe also think about your concert dress if it really fits to the program. So what are the general conditions? We already talked about some points. The first one in the second line, I think, is very important. I often was in concerts that have been very long, maybe too long in my opinion, and this can be a little boring for the audience, even if the program is very interesting. Just be sure that the length is right. So I would say for a cappella choir concert, 1 hour is perfect if you have an encore, and maybe 1 hour and 15 minutes is good, but just be sure that you are not too long with your program. And the next one, the sing by heart point, is very important as well. If your choir is not used to sing by heart, just make sure that they agree to do what you are planning to sing by heart. So here you will find some critical questions. Of course, there are many more, but I think the most important is that your program has some points that it makes really unique. So does the program attract attention in town? And does the program really give an importance to you and to the choir? I think these are really important questions that you should think about when you are planning a new concert program. Now the big question, where can I find the repertoire? Never forget that you as a choir conductor, you have your own music library, and I'm sure that you have lots of music at home that you never did. So just go through it, listen to a lot of music, and be in contact with your colleagues. Of course, there's a competition between choir conductors, but I think you should make friends and just have a good exchange with your colleagues. And there you can really find lots of ideas. And of course, you should visit concerts and go to festivals. Yes, and of course, nowadays we will find most of the music in the internet, but we are talking later on about this subject. One very important point for me is not to forget the female composers, because there are a lot of female composers these days, contemporary female composers, but also from other centuries. There are much more than Clara Schumann or Fanny Mendelssohn. Just go to these internet pages and you will check out lots of female composers who write really wonderful music. So the most important in the end is take your time. Creating a really good concert program needs a lot of time, and you always should have a list where you have all your ideas and your favorite pieces written down. And you always will find music that you love, but you cannot do in this program, or maybe you don't have the choir for this piece or whatever. Just keep really a list. And of course, you should copy the good ideas, but be sure that you stay yourself, because not every idea that you like maybe is the right idea for you and your choir. And dream and be patient. For example, since I was studying choir conducting, this is like more than 20 years ago now, I want to do the Mass in C minor of Mozart, but I never had a choir who was able to sing this piece, and we never had the money to pay the orchestra. So hopefully this December I will do now this piece, but it has you have to be patient sometimes to realize your dream. So let's go on maybe for some examples that I did in the last years, or that did some friends of mine. We will start with a Christmas concert. So this is the flyer for a Christmas concert I did last December. So I don't know what you do expect if you see this flyer. Of course, you see cookies and sweets, and you see Angeliksang. This is a German, a Swiss German playing with words. That means it's the singing of the angels. So now you have cookies and the singing of the angels. And this was the concert location we had for this special program. It was in a bakery. And here you have a picture from the rehearsal. And so why go to a bakery? I will explain this later. And here we have a picture from the concert, from the applauding in the end. You see the oven on the left side, and you also see the man in the middle. That was an actor, and we had this actor who was reciting poems between the music and talking about different Christmas tradition all over the world. And now we come to the program I did. As you can see, it's a pretty traditional program for a Christmas concert with carols and also some classical music like The Lamb from John Tavener or Manu Mysterium from Morten Lauridsen. And in the middle of these pieces, we always had the actor who was reciting poems and talking about different Christmas traditions. So that's why we ended with a song from Kenya that fits to the African Christmas tradition. And we have in the last line, the encore. It's an arrangement of Jingle Bells. It's Swiss German and Zimmetstein Hannigan. So that's why we had this flyer and this program, because Zimmetstein is a really famous Christmas cookie in Switzerland. So that's why we did all this in a bakery. Let's go on. I did once, as many of you, a program with all evening songs. And also here we had a special concert location that was this ruin in a town next to where the choir rehearses. And this is a picture from the concert. And here you have the program I did. So it's a pretty easy program, maybe except one piece from Maurice Ravel, The Ronde. That was really difficult for this choir. Maybe too difficult, but it was a good challenge and we learned a lot. And maybe you can see that in the beginning we have traditional Swiss songs. So that's always good in Switzerland if the public also see that there is music that they know. I was planning this spring a concert program with flower songs. There's tons of music that you can find for this subject, and also here we had a special concert location that was this garden center with the greenhouse, and above you can see the program that I did choose for this concert that we will do now in 2021. So I will start with German romantic music, and then stay in Germany with Volker Ochs and his Heiteres Herbarium. The music is maybe not the best in the world, but I have to say these poems are really, really nice. They are from Karl Heinrich Wackerl, and the music is also pretty easy, and this makes sense to sing these pieces just before the Britain, because the Britain is quite hard for this choir. And we will end with the lovely Chanson des Roses from Morten Lauridsen. And I found really a lot of music that I was not able to integrate in his program. So you can see there's also music from Whittaker and many others for this subject that I found actually. So what about a monothematic program? If you would love to do maybe once a little bit Handel, it not always has to be in the Messiah, even if it's really a nice piece. So I choose the 4 coronation anthems he composed, and I also decided not to combine it with other choir music, but with orchestra music. So we have a really monothematic program, but we mix 2 genres, and we have the music for the royal fireworks and the coronation anthems. And I did not one after the other, so then I mixed the movements up, as you can see. Well, here we go to a really nice program from a good friend of mine. It's Ulrike Grosch. She's a German conductor, but lives and teaches in Switzerland, in Lucerne. And she once did a really nice concert program with penitential psalms. And here you can see that she would love to start and to end with Baroque music. And in the middle you have contemporary music from Beat Vögele, which was a first performance, a commissioned piece, and also Schnittke with music from the 20th century. So what did Ulrike Grosch? She also mixed it up. She mixed Schnittke and the Zelenka. So this is a really nice idea, maybe at home, but it was very difficult for the choir, the musicians, and it was also very challenging for the audience, because the contrast between these pieces was really, really big. So maybe even if the combination of all these composers is nice, it's better not to mix up everything. Of course, you can also do a program if you choose some composer families. You know the famous Schumann couple and their friend Johannes Brahms. There you can find lots of choir music that you can combine, and also maybe you did not know that the father of the famous Wolfgang Amadeus, Leopold Mozart, was writing choir music, and you have brother and sister Felix and Fanny Mendelssohn. Once I did a program with music from the 20th century. For me, John Rutter is really famous, as well as Leonard Bernstein. And I risked the combination with a first performance with a commissioned piece from Lukas Vogelsang. It's a young Swiss composer. And we had a problem because we just had a big orchestra that we have to pay, and unfortunately the audience did not feel attracted by this program. So the audience was really small, and that was then in the end a big problem for the budget. So maybe a solution with less musicians could be better. So here I have a program with French music where we only have to pay an organist, a cellist, and 2 singers. And it's also a nice combination with choir music from Duruflé and instrumental music from Alain and Messiaen. So I now come to the end, and I would love to talk about one of my most important projects I did in the last years. It was called Mozart bewegt, so it would say the translation is Mozart in motion or in movement. And maybe you already know what piece we did. We did his famous Requiem. So this is not really a unique program, but here you can see a picture from a warm-up with the choir. Usually the benches in this church are in the middle, like in a traditional church, but here we moved the benches, and we had a really unique setting for this piece. And as you can see, the choir is singing by heart this work. Here you can see a rehearsal with the orchestra, and we also did put in this church a special floor, a dance floor, just to have a better sounding and a better floor. Then here you can see we had also a special light setup. It's still a rehearsal. And now we have some pictures from the concert. So this was pretty challenging, especially for the choir, who was singing in all different settings, and also for the musicians, because for them it was almost more difficult to play and to hear each other than for the choir, because the choir had to sing by heart. They really were into the piece, and they were really free to sing like this, but for the musicians it was really hard. So this can also be an idea to make a unique concert with a very famous piece that is often done. Yes, and now I'm at the end, and I really would love to thank you for listening. And I have to say thank you as well to Marco Amherd and Beat Sieber for sharing their ideas with me. I did a lot of research and talk with my friends, and this was really nice.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I saw some questions, Patrick. One of them Merel already answered, and I think it's okay. And now I have another one. Can you tell us more a bit what you think about stealing ideas of other conductors? It seems that it's not comfortable to do that. And personally, I have an opinion like that, but I'd like to hear you about this.
Well, I think good ideas, you also always can share good ideas, but maybe if you just pick up this idea and you just do a second time the same, it doesn't make sense at all. If you think that a program really is nice and you would like to copy it, so just make sure that you are doing something that fits to you personally, and you adapt something. Maybe you just copy the concert location, or you copy some composers and you add something else, and you make a transformation of the original idea. But I think it's very important just to I often do this, because I saw this program of the evening songs, for example, and choose completely different composers and musics. But the idea I copied from a friend of mine.
Yeah. What I can add from my personal point of view is that you have quite a few very creative persons around the world, and thanks to them, the choir music way to be presented to the audience, the choir music and the music in general is evolving, developing, going to a different direction, and we should not be afraid to look at what they do and to be inspired. I think copy is not the right word. Inspired is the right word. And for me, there's no problem. And we can see, I have been now about 40 years around the globe to listen to concerts, and you can see that the evolution, the general evolution, is going slightly in one direction or another direction. And the very creative people, they are always doing revolution, but it won't change the art at once. So no problem. And we should be happy to have those people developing new ideas and new ways. Sonja, is it time to go? I don't see any more questions. I said, dear Patrick, with nothing. Maybe
it was just a thank you, I think, but then there's a question now. So the question.
Thank you for your talks. How would you introduce 21st century in a play that rejects and show resistance to a change? Yeah.
Yes, and maybe copy. You are absolutely right. Copy is not the right word. Maybe just be inspired by other programs and other ideas.
Yeah. And rejecting the new things, I don't know. Sometimes the audience, they get very contemporary music without knowing, and they like it. So anything about how to introduce 21st century choral music?
Yes, I think that the best thing is a really very traditional idea, is just to combine it with music that is known, So if you have, for example, Handel and contemporary music, that is a big contrast, but Handel knows everybody and the contemporary music not. So people will come for Handel maybe, and they will learn about the new piece.
Okay, and very soon we are going to speak with Merel, who will speak much more about modern music, if not classical contemporary, but modern music. And that's also challenging for the classical audience to go to such concerts. So we will talk more probably about this. Sonja, anything on Musica maybe now?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Patrick.
Maybe
Stay
a last
with us.
remark. A last remark on the last question, which is kind of bridging to my thing. I think also those thematic concerts, when you choose a theme and you can actually have music from different styles and different times, then you can also have some contemporary music mixed into the program. And I wanted to present to you a tool, the Musica database, which is very useful when you're searching for repertoire for such concerts. And I picked an example from what Patrick mentioned, but before I will present the database to you, first of all, welcome to all further participants. We are now at 110 people, so this is fantastic, and a lot of other people watching on Facebook. Welcome to everybody. And for those who may have missed the beginning, we will share those slides that we show with everybody whose email address we have. So if you want to have the slides and you did not register by email, just send us a message or a private message on Facebook and we will share the slides. So before I go to the presentation, I want to do a second short poll with you, just to know if our audience is actually familiar with the Musica database and if you know what it's all about. So I will launch that poll now. And then maybe I will talk a little bit while people are voting. The Musica database is an enormous database, and I will not give you any statistics now. You can look all this up on the website that I will show in a moment. But it's a very useful tool if you want to get new ideas. So if your own library is not showing the ideas that you're looking for, and you want to see what else is out there, what else exists. And this is especially effective, for example, if you have a topic, like I will choose the topic of flower that Patrick mentioned. And if I want to know what songs exist that are talking about flowers and that I may not know yet. I will show you just very shortly, because a webinar hour is quite short, on this example how you can search in Musica, and then I will mostly encourage you to just go to the Musica database and try it out yourself. So we have now had 103 votes, so I will end the polling and we can have a look at the distribution, and I will share the results again. So about 23% of the people listening are familiar with the database and have already used it. About 30% have heard about it but have never used it. And the majority has actually never heard about it. So I'm very happy that we chose to present the Musica database in this context, because I'm sure that for those 70% who have never used it, or more than 70%, you will discover a tool that can help you a lot. So let's have a quick look at it. And I would like to remind our members, before I go into the presentation, that members of ECA-EC, as one of their membership advantages, actually have a privileged full access to the Musica database, and they can see more than if you just go to the public page. So if you are a member, go to our members only section and make use of this advantage. And I will now share the website and hope that I can actually do a live presentation, which is nicer than just showing slides. So when you go to the Musica database, you will be able to access the website, and then you will find a search form. And if you are there for the first time, you can watch a tutorial on how it works. Now, these are only the very basic keywords, so I could just type in now that I want to search for songs with flower, but if I do that, I will probably get like 1,000 hits, and it will be rather tiring to look through all those examples. So if I choose more criteria, I have the possibility to actually adapt the search to what I want exactly. So I could also look for pieces from composers. I have heard a composer's name and think, oh, maybe there might be interesting music, or I could search for a specific piece that I have heard about. But I can also use keywords. So in this case, for example, in keywords, I could type in flower. And then I could choose which language I want to sing in, which I would not do now. And I can say, do I have a mixed choir, an equal voice choir? And I chose, let's say, I have a school choir or an amateur choir that only can sing 3 parts. So I chose SAB with 3 voices only. I can say, how long do I want the piece to be? And let's say I want it to be 2 to 5 minutes, because that's a good length for such a program where I want to mix a lot of different pieces. And I can indicate how good is my choir, so how difficult should the pieces be. And I choose 3 as being a middle level, for example. I can also add specific publishers if I know them. I can add instrumentation, how many instrumental parts, or I can choose, I want to find composers from a specific country. So I want to do a Swiss program. So let's see which Swiss composers there are. And pointing to what Patrick just said, and I can only support this, there are so many female composers around that people don't know about. You can also indicate a gender and say, I only want to find female composers, or I only want to find male, or I want both. In my case, I want both. So I will go for the search. And I will then get a list of entries that fulfill the criteria. Now you have to know that these entries are being entered either by publishers or by volunteers who are entering loads of scores into the Musica database. And they are also the ones, obviously, that have entered the keyword. So sometimes you will sing, what? Guantanamera? I would not have called this a flower song, but probably the word flower or the name of a flower appears somewhere in the text. So the person who put this into the system put the word flower as a keyword. And then you can see the basic information about every score here already, and you will find some symbols that show you which additional information or resource you can access. And I will show you in a minute what this means, but it means that you can have maybe access to an excerpt from the score, you can have the text, you can have maybe a translation of the text, you can have a pronunciation guide, and you can sometimes also have a recording, so you can listen to a choir singing it. I've chosen this piece just because there's a lot available about it, so I can show you as an example what comes out if you hit this piece. So it's a Swedish song that some of you may know, and first of all, in this middle section you will find the basic information. And for some scores, this is very complete, and for others, it's a bit less complete. But so you will find the publisher, so you know where to order it. You will find in which language the text is, which century, what genre, type of choir, if there are soloists, if there is an accompaniment, the difficulty for the choir, which is something I had searched for. So I said my choir is level 3, so middle difficulty. But there's also a difficulty for the conductor, and sometimes maybe a piece is easy for the choir and difficult for the conductor, or the other way around. So you can also judge this a little bit. And you have the duration, which in this case is 2.5 minutes. And then below you have sometimes a physical library that has either entered the score or that has the score. Now, what I find especially interesting in Musica also is this. What you find up here means what can I find about this piece, and I go on view and I can get an excerpt of the score, and I can go on text and I will be led to a website where I can find the original text, which here you have to scroll down, and then you will find the whole original text, which is also nice if you do a program book, for example. And then you might have a translation of the text into English and sometimes into other languages. So you can also use that at some point. Yeah, there is the English translation, as you can see. And in this specific case, I also have a pronunciation file that gives me help on how to pronounce Swedish. And then we don't have that for this song, but when you see the little headphone here, when I click on this one, for example, then I can also have an audio excerpt, and I can listen to a recording. So this was a very quick presentation. We don't have enough time to go into details, but I just wanted to show one example. I would really like to simply encourage you to go to the website yourself and to try it out and to see what you find. You can spend many hours there and you will be astonished what you can see. So I think that was about my presentation. I don't know if there are any questions about this part, but I think it's not so important. I would prefer to use the question time mostly for Merel and Jean-Claude. So I would suggest that I will look at the written questions and answers in case there's something coming up on Musica.
It is always so clear, Sonja, that there are no questions at the moment. But they are in the chat, there are something happening, and Com is trying to help us because it seems that the chat could be set up a little bit more precisely. So if you have 2 minutes to contact Com and arrange this with him.
I will go to the chat now because now I don't have to speak anymore. So I will pass the word
to Merel, and thank you very much for your presentation, Sonja. Merel, it's up to you. Bring us to modern music.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy and honored to share a little bit of my vision with you. I'm active in like pop and jazz music, pulse-based music, rhythmic vocal music. I don't know actually what word to use myself, but I just like to work with music that is, I guess, non-classical to start with a lot of rhythmic approach and groove. So the thing that I think is most important when we create a concert is that it's not only about the pieces that we are singing, but it's about a complete experience. So we are also working with, for example, staging. Where do we put the singers? What is like a written arrangement or score that we used, and what is improvisation? What is something that was written by someone else, or what is something that is composed by us? And within this whole experience, I guess, in my field of music, so to say, it's important that we create an experience that is unique to the group that we are actually watching. And that's also something that Patrick already said. Thank you, Patrick, for an excellent presentation. I'm so inspired also to go and check out some things. So I guess the thing is, we want to find ins also in arrangements that are unique to our groups. And maybe even a little more than in classical music, we kind of feel a certain amount of freedom to interpret and to make covers, because I guess covers is something in pop and jazz music that we can find all over. And if we start to sing something pop with a choir, we are basically creating a cover. And then it's so cool if your choir has like a different approach than another choir when it comes to a song that the whole world knows. So that's something, I guess, that is important, in my opinion, when we choose repertoire. That we find a way to bring something that is unique to your group. Then I also feel like there should be a right balance between, I don't know, like teaching the audience a little bit about, you know, improvisation, music that might not be familiar to them, and comfort. So things that they understand, things that they can relate to, perhaps things that they know and that they can lean back to. So that both pillars, tension-wise, are present in a concert. So sometimes they feel inspired, and sometimes they see something new, and sometimes they see something familiar. And I guess, you know, we're talking about so many different things in this session, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of examples, and I'm not going to try to cover all, because then we're going to need so many more hours to actually make that happen. But we're talking about like how to program a concert program that is unique, but we're also talking about like how can you make one single arrangement or one single piece or song unique. And that's also something I want to share some examples about with you. So the first one, for example, is I want to show you, let's see if I can share screen, one of the arrangements that I made. Let's see. Here. Over here. Oh. This is an arrangement of Chasing Cars. I guess I was searching for how to just share my screen instead of only one opening. Yeah, that's a little bit difficult. So now I will switch. I will switch from this program into just sharing music. That's actually better. So, an arrangement of Chasing Cars, which probably you know, the original is by Snow Patrol. It's like up-tempo, upbeat kind of stuff. Aha. I'm messing up the things here. I actually was in the right place. I'm sorry, I guess I'm a little bit nervous. Does that make sense? Like when you're watching so many screens and you're like, okay, I have to go there. No, so
Relax,
sorry
relax,
for this.
relax.
Yeah, I'm relaxed. It will just take some more time than, you know, when I'm in a comfort zone. I guess all of us we have to try out all this online teaching a little bit. So I was in the right place. I was just, here is the recording, so I can just play the recording. So this is a song. Here's the sheet music. That is originally like upbeat rock kind of song.
We'll do it all.
We take out of context and we do something different with it to surprise the audience.
On our own. We don't need anything or anyone. Your grace to remind me to find my own. If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world?
Etc. So I guess, you know, the fact that we can interpret songs, it gives us so much opportunities to create something that feels natural, that is something that we can consider our own approach to music. And that's what I want to encourage you to do too. I write my arrangements in Sibelius, and that is actually very easy because then I can also share MIDI files with my singers for rehearsal. For example, this sound. So exactly this sound line, like part per part, I can send out to my singers so that they can have easy files to practice with. As you can see, this is another example of Behind Blue Eyes, reharmonized and in a different time signature. I like to play around with that kind of stuff. So, and within this arrangement, I actually tried to add, let me search for this, a little bit of improvisation, because what I love to do is to have a combination of rhythm music and improvisation, because I feel like you know, with the voice, we have so many opportunities and we are so like emotional and in the moment that sometimes improvised music can be so interesting and so touching because it's so much connected to the vibe in the room. And we all know about that because I guess otherwise we wouldn't be here. But improvisation sometimes makes this like even more delicate in the moment. So I like to combine written music and improvisation. So here's a little bit of an example. Let me share only sound of the same song recorded. Oh, this one.
That's never free.
And this is a little bit of improvisation in the middle. Guided this improvisation a little bit, but it is musically improvised. And then we go back to the score in the end. A little bit of an effect on the voices here. Now we go back to the score again. So this is a way that I like to, you know, artistically create something that is unique, both in the moment and both to the group it's written for.
To be defeated.
So when we want to find pieces that are written, I guess I can give you two examples of websites that I would like to use where we can find nice pieces. For example, I will go back to this one. Here we have Chorus Online. I don't know if you know this. I guess it's like, it started as a Dutch initiative, but there's so many people from abroad also gathered. Everything you can buy in here is completely legal, as you can see here in the top. There's 1,450 arrangements plus. And what you can do is you can find the same sort of like search machine as Sonja just showed us here for different, you know, styles, levels, voices. And then here's an example, When I Need a Friend by Coldplay. I love that new track. Awesome. Then we can also play an example. Can you hear this?
Holy, holy, doth descend, soft and slowly.
So that's Chorus Online. One place I can recommend. And then I also thought about this edition Ferry Montana. And then we can go here. These links I guess will be shared by Sonja afterwards too. There's many scores in all sorts of music styles that we can find here. Let's see if we, for example, search for Viva la Vida, a piece that is very popular by Jens Johansson and vocal line. Then here we can see a piece of the score, and it's the same kind of example of a song that is taken out of context, because the original by Coldplay is not in this, but it starts with I used to rule the world, right? So the vibe is a little bit different. So it's another example of something that we can do. Now there's many groups also around that write their own music and work with originals, and that's something like the combination that I would like to, you know, encourage you to do. For example, Pentatonics. Here we have The Sound of Silence, a song that the whole world knows. Let me just start here. But Pentatonics also writes original songs, you know, that are unique to them as a group, that you can also buy via their website. So many really cool scores. So this is Run to You, you might know this. Yeah, so I hope this is a little bit of inspiration for you to think outside of the box, to think about what you love and what can make you unique and how you combine improvisation, scores, originals and covers and make it into something that, you know, is you. That's basically my bottom line in this talk. So I guess to save us some time for questions, I should stop here, right, Jean-Claude?
I can't stop listening to you. So, you finished with the example you have?
Yes.
Okay, I see no questions at the moment, but a lot of chat. I see that Sonja and Koom has solved more or less all the questions about reading each other, but I have no direct questions.
Okay.
One is coming. What do you tell them when they have to improvise? Do you practice before the improvisation? Okay, it's a question about, can you read it? From Elizabeth.
It's in Q&A, I guess.
What do you tell your singers when they have to improvise? Do you practice before the improvisation?
Yeah, it's
How does it
very...
work?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's very important to me that there's a clear frame for improvisation. So the singers have a kind of something to hold on to. A tool that I use a lot was comes from Jim Daciano. It's called vocal painting. It's a method where we can use our hands to kind of guide improvisation a little bit. And within frames, singers are still free to actually express themselves. But I also like to frame improvisation within a concert. So like it's not, okay, we're on the floor now and we're going to start from scratch and do some improv, but it's already within an arrangement or like a transition from one song to another, so that we already know what kind of vibe and what kind of energy we need for a certain improvisation. And then we would definitely try out in rehearsal first, so that we kind of have like a sort of like wheel or like general feel.
Yeah, and I can, do you hear me? Yeah. And I can add, in 1 month we have another webinar with Jim Dowse coming on vocal painting. So he will tell you a lot about how to get out the grid and control the improvisation. So it's a combination between creativity but in a frame. Thank you, Merel. I have another question. How do you organize a song in your programs? And if you have arrangement and original, is it something that you take into account for doing the program setting?
Yes. So like I said, you know, within the, yes, how? I guess within a whole concert program, I guess for me it's important to both educate the audience and give them something new, something exciting, and to comfort them with something that they feel familiar with and that they already know. So we can use both, and I guess the order does not really depend on. I would not make an order based on original cover or something, but I would make an order in terms of energy. So something that builds up, that becomes like more high energy or like a certain flow within the concert, to up-tempo pieces, and then slowly, you know, building it down again, instead of having a programming that is like up-tempo, slow, up-tempo, slow. That would not really work, I guess. And same answer for like improvisation and arrangement. It's more about like the general energy of the whole concert, and then things will fit into place.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Merel, for your presentation. It was really inspiring, and maybe we have a better idea that we can try out and not just get this in a corner, but much more quiet than we think can try to go into that repertoire. It takes a little bit of methodology, right? So, Sonja, it's my turn. I see the slide. So, to finish this webinar, I promise to just 5 minutes. I promise not longer, to remind you the rules and the law. You know, I just retired 1 month ago from Accueil in France, where I was a director, but also the manager of the publishing house. And by the way, we have a hard time. Every musician, everybody involved in culture have a hard time nowadays with this virus. But the publishing house, maybe more than any other shop. Anyway, so the music is not given to us by God for free. Somebody write music or wrote music long time ago, and when we speak about choral music, most of the time somebody write also poetry text that were adapted to make song, right? And all this is protected. So everything is protected by two different kind of law, one being more Anglo-Saxon, so Great Britain and United States plus some countries, and all the other, it's called copyright. And in the Central Europe and Western Europe, except for Norway, I think, and Great Britain, if I'm right, for Norway, we have what we call the Intellectual Property Code, CPI in French. It's a big book which rule the intellectual property. And in this book, a big chapter is on author rights. So to make it sure, every music is protected by one way or the other. If I speak about intellectual property for our countries, France, Germany, or Spain, Italy, and Central Europe as well, it's protected for 70 years after the death of the last owner. Meaning if you have a different person for the music and the text, you take the year of the death of the last one, you add 70 years, and it's protected during those 70 years, and the family gets the money when they are right paid. It's on the text, same thing on the music. There are some exceptions, I don't go into that. Now, 70 years later, this music fall into the public domain, so it's free. You have access for free. But don't forget that the score that you buy or you copy are also protected with the industrial right, which is shorter. It's depending which country, 25 years in Germany, 20 years in France, for instance. So if an early music, a Renaissance music scores is printed with a nice setting and a nice cover by a publisher, I don't know, Carus, for instance, the publication of Carus is protected for 25 years. So you may not copy even if the music is in the public domain. After the 25 years, if Carus has not renewed his engraving, it's free, you can copy if you wish. There are some specific rules for what we call urtext, you know, early music that have been researched again by musicologists to make new version and blah blah. These versions might be also protected in copyright. It's a bit, you have to be careful with these kind of, usually it's urtext. Now, what can you do in terms of copy, PDF, transferring, etc.? So if it's a protected money, you cannot copy, you may not copy, you cannot give a copy away, you cannot make a PDF, a scan, and you cannot circulate this for free. It is illegal. Okay, so you have to buy the score, one score per person, or nowadays you have more and more and more places, and in Merel's music, more than any other music, you can also write license to use a PDF. And usually when you buy a license, you get a PDF from the publisher, or sometimes from the musician himself if he self-published, and you will have a note on the PDF that it is sold that date to that person for that use in that many copies. And then this you can circulate legally. There are some score for free on internet. Some are legal, like IMSLP, for instance, which is quite a huge website for early music. These are most of them engraving of early music by students or by classrooms in university or in musicology section of university. It's free, it's legal, and you can use it at your own risk, I would say, because not all the students are so good that they don't make any mistake. So I remember very well using the Spet and Allium from Thalys, you know, this 64, is it 64 parts? Yeah. For the World Youth Choir, and there were one mistake in every bar. So it took us more time to correct the score than to rehearse the actual music. So be careful with IMSLP, but if it's clean, well done by a student, you have many scores from the public domain that are available there. This is what you can do. I guess I have a lot of questions. Sonja, help me.
Yes, you do, and I will try to share them according to also the relevance to your topic and maybe some more general ones. So the first question I want to read is Fabien asked, what if we sing by heart? Because I think that's a very common question and we are not using any scores on stage. What is the situation then?
Of course, it's not illegal to sing by heart. It's a good thing. But if you use a score in the rehearsal room, it's not private. Rehearsal rooms are not private, okay? So you have to have a score to rehearse. Of course, if you teach the music to kids, like in schools, and you teach by roots and by memory, if you have a score, it's okay. I mean, the kids, if they learn from your teaching, they don't have to buy a score to learn from your teaching. But for a normal, let's say, academic choir, you have to buy the score to rehearse. And also, what about Irene and myself, Sonja, about arranged music? So it's also something that happened in many schools, that the teacher, they arrange themselves for their class. So if it's just in school, that's okay, I think, because in many countries, in most of the countries, they are Ministry of Education have agreement with the GEMA or with the SACEM to do this kind of thing. But of course, if they go out of school and start to make concerts with that, and or if they print the score and sell it outside, this is totally illegal. So normally, to make an arrangement, and Merel will correct me if she thinks I'm wrong, to make an arrangement of chord play, you need to have the authorization of chord play. Of course, if you don't tell anybody and you go on concert with that, and on your list for the GEMA or for the SACEM or the SABAM, you write chord play, okay, so chord play will get the money and nobody will complain, okay? That's okay. Now, if you sell your arrangement, that's totally illegal. To sell your arrangement, you should have a license from the publisher of Coldplay who give you the right to make a reproduction right, because in this world, they don't feel that your arrangement is an added value. They just feel that you copy it, okay? So they give you the permission to duplicate, and then you can sell your arrangement, but you pay the permission, of course. And you pay in advance for an amount of copy. That's what the publisher do. I mean, we in our house, we have a lot of songs that are arranged by somebody. So we ask the publisher of the original song for permission to reproduce the song. We pay for that, and then we can publish and sell the arrangement. Is it clear? Anything else, Sonja?
I think the next question that was similar to the singing by heart is, what do you do if you have a tablet? That comes from Georges. He says, if I want to use a tablet, there are many scores that don't exist as PDF for the tablet. So he says, I scan the score I bought and use it on my tablet. Is this legal?
Yeah, if you have an inspector coming, like in France, you have now l'ACEAM, which gives you against payment the right to photocopy. If you have an inspector and you show the original and you have scanned it for your tablet, it is okay. But if you have on your tablet a PDF that a friend gave you without buying the original, it's not okay.
And I think you can maybe say that the same is actually true for photocopies. If you want to make photocopies, for example, because you want to write things into the scores, this is what orchestras are doing a lot. If you have the original score and you can prove that you have enough copies of the original score for the singers in your choir and you bought them for your choir, then you are allowed to make photocopies and sing out of the photocopies because you may want to mark them in a different way. Let's say you are normally singing soprano 1 and this time you sing soprano 2, so you want another version of the score. That's okay as long as you have the original score and you can prove it. No? I mean...
Well, you spoke about orchestra. We should skip orchestra here because many of the major work orchestra is renting material, so there are specific rules for that. So let's take that out. Let's keep on choir a cappella. It's a bit easier. So yes, if you have an original score and you want to copy it to mark with your pencil, your own score.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yes. But you should have your own score.
Yes.
Not 20 scores in the library of the choir and changing singers every year. You see what I mean?
And theoretically, an inspector can ask about that in a concert if they come to the concert.
He can ask for the score and he can ask for the invoice.
Yeah.
And the invoice must be on the name of the person or of the choir.
Then there is a question about 21st century music. Dear Jean-Claude, it's from Walter Fralda. Thank you for your talk. It was very precious. I'm really concerned about the costs of 21st century. I think it means all copyrighted scores. And honestly, it prevents my community amateur choir to have a larger library and to respect the rights of everyone. Don't you think that if reducing the scores price, that all the choirs would benefit? In addition, would this not do more to promote the living composers and support the industry if the scores were cheaper?
Yes, you are right. I must say, I agree with you very much. There are two cases. There are some composers, and I won't put some names, that sell themselves their music. They have established a publishing house for themselves, and they sell very expensive. And this is their strategy. I don't know if they prefer sell less and make good money each time. That's one case. You cannot do anything against that. There are some publishing companies also who are really too expensive with modern music. And of course, I can understand because commission work, unfortunately, many times they are performed 1 or 2 times and then they go in the shelves, you know, and nobody look at it anymore. And so once somebody wants to buy it, they have to print it specially and it costs a lot. But I agree with you that we should promote contemporary music and sell it at the right price and not try to make more money on it. In our publishing house, it's exactly per page price, whatever, whenever and whatever success the scores have. And with another hat, as a producer, again for the World Youth Choir, I remember that we wanted to perform one piece and the score was like, I don't know, 60 euros per singer. And so I called the publishing saying, we have 100 singers, make your choice, but we have 20 euros per score, not more. So or we sing it, or we leave it. And they sold it for 20 euros. So you can also negotiate when you have a big deal on very expensive score. It's possible.
So Georges has one more question about the tablet question. He says, I have a tablet, so I don't have to carry all the original scores to every concert. So if somebody comes to check, can I also show them the original scores later if I don't have them with me at the concert?
Yeah, I suppose yes. I mean, you are not going to go to jail.
Yeah. And then there is a question about songbooks. If the score is published only in a songbook, should I buy the full songbooks for all singers?
That's a question. That's an interesting question. So if we do Europa Cantat open singing songbook, some of the scores, well, all the scores belong to, except for 1 or 2 present that we got, belong to different composer, different publishers. So Europa Cantat, or the publisher who do that for Europa Cantat, asks permission to reproduce each score in the songbook for 5,000 copies at this price. Okay. Then after Europa Cantat, you got your book home and you say, this piece, I want to do it with my choir. The publisher who did that, if he is not the owner of the original song, he cannot sell the song alone to you. He can sell you the book, but he cannot sell only the 4-page of the song. You have to go to the original owner and buy it from this person. What happens sometimes is that the original owner have this score out of print and don't sell it anymore. And this is a hard problem for the shop, because we want to have the music performed and the original owner don't want to sell it anymore. So I don't have an answer to that. But by the way, if, for instance, like last time in Tallinn, it was Sulasol. If Sulasol has the right of one of the music that is in the songbook, he can sell you, of course, the right, the one piece only.
Yes, and I can say maybe that it depends very much on the publishers. So there are some publishers where it's fairly easy to do printing on demand, which I think especially now in COVID-19 times is very useful, because you can get a PDF that you can share and it's a legal PDF. So my choir, for example, works a lot with this method. But there are publishers where this is very difficult, or that are not very responsive. So it's difficult to find out the legal situation. In some cases, this has happened to me as well. You even have to try to find the composer because the publisher has lost contact, and you have to ask the composer directly when it was a song in a collection, but that can take some time. We have one more question, which is a bit more complex, and somebody answered, or it's a bit outside the topic maybe. How can I find the right editor to publish music transcriptions with? And one of the participants answered.
I try to answer this. You have two different things. Are you the composer? Because I read transcription, which this is a word quite tricky. If you are the composer, you can send your manuscript to publishers, and they will reply you or not if they are interesting to publish your, etc. If you are the composer and you wrote on a text that is protected, I don't know, a poet that you don't know, but you pick up the text, then it's more tricky, because we have to trace the poet and the owner of the poet in order to, etc. But you send your manuscript. Coming to transcription, if I understand well, you speak about arrangement of pop music, for instance. This is difficult because of course, the publisher, if he decides to publish your arrangement, the first thing he will have to do is to ask permission of reproduction rights, as I explained 5 minutes ago. It's a long process with some companies. Some companies you get an answer within 24 hours. Some companies you wait for 1 year. And I can tell you, for instance, in our house, we have a Michel Legrand, Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, already done for 15 years, and we don't manage to have a positive answer from Michel Legrand. So the publisher are less inclined to take this, because it's investment in time and investment in money before selling.
Jean-Claude, yes. I have a message from Enrico in the chat that says his question is, I'm a composer too, but I speak about early music transcriptions.
Well, if you go back to the manuscript and you do the musicologist work, I don't know, recently we published some Vivaldi completely revived from the manuscript. Some publishers are very interested with that. If it's what we call urtext, who are really doing the musicological work in the library and with the manuscript, you can find, I mean in Germany, Carus, Bernreiter, Schott, they are all interested by that. In France as well. Yeah, except if it's really, I don't know, a codex for Middle Age that nobody will sing. It is only a university research, then invest money on the engraving. You must talk with the publishers, and they must evaluate together if there is a market for that, because money is money and publisher is business.
So thank you very much, Jean-Claude. I think that was the last question. And since we are already over time and first people have had to leave us, let's maybe wrap this up. And we hope this webinar has been useful for you. We would just like to encourage you to follow us on social media. Then you will also hear about future webinars we will be offering. We will probably increase the number of webinars in the coming month or year. And if you are not yet subscribed to our newsletter, please do so, because there you will also hear not only about webinars, but in general about what it is. We didn't take any time to explain what is the European Choral Association Europa Cantat in this webinar, because we wanted to have the focus on the contents. But obviously on our website, if you want to find out more about us, you can go to the website and you can subscribe to the newsletter, or you can send us a message. And as we said already a little bit earlier, here is our next webinar coming up. So on Friday, June 19th at 11 a.m. Central Eastern European Summer Time or German time. And it's Jim Dowse, who is probably the one who knows best how to do a webinar, who will introduce the intelligent choir and vocal painting to you. And you will start finding some advertising.
And I will be there.
Jean-Claude will introduce you, and my team and I will be offering technical support if needed. And with this, we have come to the end of our presentation. And just to repeat that we have the email addresses of everybody who registered for this webinar. So we will send you in a few days a link to the PowerPoint presentation and the links that were shown, and also a short evaluation form to find out if you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you very much for your active participation, and maybe I'll leave the very final word to Jean-Claude as our Vice President to close the webinar officially.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for coming and joining. Bye-bye.